At DePaco Credit Union, we value your health and happiness as much as your financial well-being. We encourage the volunteer spirit by providing DePaco employees with the tools and resources to help grow our communities and support the causes that matter to us. We believe that giving back not only strengthens the places we call home, but also enhances our overall well-being. Well-being is the key to a life worth loving. So when you think about yours, remember that DePaco can help you be well.
All things Hawkeyes, your all-access pass. From courtside to the postgame. Iowa's News Now Sports presents Eye on the Hawks. Sponsored by DePaco Community Credit Union and Pin Seekers.
We're still, honestly, a work in progress. I'm still really shuffling through that, top 8 or so. They're all battling, and that's what makes it fun, and that's what makes it hard.
Top 8 is an interesting choice of words from Jan Jensen. Welcome to the Eye on the Hawks podcast, the first women's basketball podcast of the season. I think probably moving forward once we get into the year, Owen Sebring and Mike Howell will probably be combining the podcast with basketball stuff, just, basketball and women's basketball. But for this week, with so much availability from the men's and women's team, we decided to split in two. So we had Elliot Clough on the podcast for the men's team. Great insider, a lot of good info, and you can find that on the Eye on the Hawks YouTube page. What's the YouTube page we plug here? Eye on the Hawks.
Iowa's News Now.
Iowa's News Now YouTube page.
The Iowa's News Now YouTube page. You can find that. All the interviews that mostly you gathered. I gathered a few of them. Mm-hmm. And all of our other football-related podcasts.
Yeah, the ones from Owen, you can tell when they're a little bit more eye level than the ones that Mike is doing.
Man, I felt so short yesterday at the men's media day, just looking up like this to Trey Thompson and Cam Manyow. So,
yeah, well, we get a little bit of that with the women's team. Even we've got Layla Hayes on that roster, who's 6'5". She's got like 3 inches on me. Man, that's
be nice to have some size on that floor this season.
Honestly, and that's going to be one of the things we're talking about today is the size that this team has on the roster. And when we're talking about top 8. Jeff Linder and I from the Gazette were talking about that during the media availability. Is like, okay, so she said top 8. Who are the 8? Like, when you look up and down this roster, Mike, do you have an idea of like who you think is the 8 that are going to be in the strong rotation for this Hawkeye women's team?
So I wrote a list, but I think first we should note that we're teeing it off with Pin Seekers with our first topic.
Yes, we are teeing it off with Pin Seekers.
I haven't done that yet on the podcast. I got to do it. That's pretty cool.
I was going to say I'm not the quarterback of this podcast like Mitch is for the football ones, and so I forget about.
I've got the rundown right in front of my face.
In the DePaco studio, as we always make sure we need to plug too.
So when I'm looking at it, and you know what, when I was just listening to that, I was thinking she said 8 or so. Does the or so give you some leeway?
I hope it does, because I'm very confused about who the 8 would be.
I see 9 that I could see in the rotation.
Sure.
Chit Chat, Taylor, McCabe, Kylie Feuerbach, Hannah Stolke, Ava Hayden, Addie Deal, Taylor Strimlow, Layla Hayes, and Tegan Mullaney. She was in the rotation last year.
Yes, and Tegan Mullaney maybe is that 9th one that is like on the borderline of the rotation. Jeff Linder thought like, is she actually one of the top 8? He was a little bit.
She was up and down. She had a lot of good and bad last year. So maybe Jen tightens the rotation. Mm-hmm. I don't know. There's a couple of question marks too, and this is someone maybe. The freshmen and sophomores, Emily Rodriguez, the transfer coming in, and Journey Houston, do you think they get any play, or are they more developmental?
Boy, Journey for sure, developmental. People really like Journey and what she's going to become, but I'd say developmental. A lot of people seem to really like Emily Rodriguez, and watching her during the practice sessions this summer, I was always like, dang, she's good. Like, she's obviously got size for a guard. Like, she is split on the roster as a guard/forward, but I think she's very talented. So, as I just start, looking at the numerical roster and going up and down, you got Taylor Strimlow, Taylor McCabe, Kylie Feuerbach, Ava Hayden, Addie Deal, Chit Chat Wright, Layla Hayes, Hannah Stolke, Tegan Mullaney. Is that about what you said too? Is that your same lineup, I think, or same 8 that you listed?
Yeah, I had 9 though.
Right. Well, Tegan was my 9th.
Oh, okay. I thought you went 8.
So the maybe one exception I could make in there is like I'm curious how big of a factor Taylor McCabe is in the lineup this year. She's been somebody who's been around, obviously, for a long time. She was on the roster for the 2 Final Four teams, has been a solid contributor. She's done her thing. She comes and makes some 3-pointers, but never the impact player on the roster. And maybe this is the year that she steps in, is that impact player for the team that is knocking down, maybe 12 to 15 points a night. But it also wouldn't shock me if maybe Taylor is still, taking a back seat a little bit, and it's more Emily Rodriguez that's coming in. That is not inside info or anything that I have, but also I just am not sure if Taylor McCabe is one of the top 8 players on the team. Maybe she is, but we'll see this year.
Yeah, one thing that I think in the past even last year we discussed, and I remember someone commented on our feed last year, I think, when we were mentioned that Taylor McCabe was, maybe the phrase was just a good 3-point shooter. Mm-hmm. And they said that she could do, but a lot of her points were just the threes. And now, Can she, score off the dribble? Can she be a more well-rounded offensive player next year, or this upcoming season? That's still, a question mark for me. I haven't seen a lot of practice. First off, do you think she starts at the 2, or when I'm looking at the 5 that I've got, obviously Hannah and Hannah Stokey, Ava Hayden are at 4 and 5. Mm-hmm. And then I assume Chit Chat's number 1.
Seems like that's what we're hearing. Is it? Chit
So then Kylie Feuerbach probably be your 3. And does Taylor start, or is it Addie Deal, your freshman 5-star?
It would not surprise me if Taylor is the day 1 starter, and then maybe that transitions, around December, January to Addie Deal possibly.
Or maybe Taylor wins that job, and Addie is having a 5-star come off the bench would be pretty good for your depth.
Yeah, and Addie is who we wanted to kind of get things talking about with today. And again, thanks again to Pin Seekers for helping us tee this podcast off today as we get into the women's basketball season. Addie Deal had all of the hype coming into this year. She's coming from California. She was the big recruit after Caitlin Clark. And even last year when we were talking about Lucy Olson being on the team, it was okay, Lucy is here to bridge the gap between Caitlin Clark and Addie Deal. Just automatically, this is the future of the team. And while I don't have any reason yet to question that, I am still curious if that will be the case. One of my questions I like to ask to the players, both men's and women's and football even, is okay, who has impressed you in the offseason? Who has come in and really showed a lot in practice, that they've done a lot to improve themselves in the offseason? I didn't hear anybody yesterday say Addie Deal, which, again, that's subjective, but still, there were a lot of Ava Heidens, there was some Journey Houston, there was some Hannah Stolke and Layla Hayes, but I didn't hear anybody mention Addie. And I think that a lot of people think that the potential is there with Addie, but is she the star from day 1 that Caitlin Clark was and that Lucy Olson was and that maybe this team is expecting? I'm not so sure anymore. Maybe she is a little bit more of a developmental player that, contributes a lot as a freshman, but maybe isn't the star that's going to put up 18 points a night coming in.
Counterpoint, and I don't know if this is true because I wasn't at media day, but we were talking on the men's basketball podcast how there wasn't a lot of talk out the gate about Bennett Sturtz, and now obviously Bennett's a different player. He's not coming in as a freshman. He's a senior, and he's had 3 years in college. But I wonder if your heralded recruit doesn't get the questions, because when I watched Jan's press conference, I don't think anyone asked about Addie Deal, just like they didn't ask Ben McCollum about Bennett Sturtz.
That's true.
So I wonder if it's just a known commodity, her play. Mm-hmm. That will yet to be seen, Yeah. But that's just a thought.
Well, let's hear from some of these players as they do talk about Addie Deal and at least what she has shown so far and what they expect out of her as a freshman.
I want to be an impact player. I want to just do the best I can. I want the team to win. Big Ten championship is a huge goal of ours. So just to do anything I can to help us win.
She's an amazing person. She's a great basketball player, and she's been really eager to come in and do what she can. I've tried to build a good relationship with her. She's super friendly, so it's not that hard. We're both pretty friendly people. So, yeah, she's a great addition to our team, and I think she's going to be great. Hawk fans are going to love her.
I think she definitely has potential to be an impact player for this team, and Addie is a great player, and she's going to have an amazing 4 years. I'm not sure what that ultimately looks like this year, and I know she will get some minutes, and she absolutely deserves it. And she's a great player, and she has a great shot, great mid-range, and she can finish around the hoop. So, I'm excited for her, and I know she has lots of hype around her, so she definitely feels that pressure.
Just had a chance there to hear from Sydney Afalter, former player, now an assistant on this team. Love having her back around. Always one of my favorite players to talk to. She's got just a great mind, has a good brain for the game. So interesting hearing her talk about Addie Deal. So to your point, Mike, I think that you're right. Like, maybe there is just the assumption that she's going to come in and be good, and everybody on the team assumes that, and so like she's just met the expectations. There's also a possibility that they're like trying maybe not to talk about her so much because they already know that like there is a lot of hype around her, and they know that maybe the Caitlin Clark comparisons are going to be there. That, oh man, here's this next 5-star recruit that we've got. She's going to be the next big thing. She's going to start from day one and score 20 points for us. And maybe the team sees that, but they're like, let's not oversell it quite yet. Let's let her prove what she's worth, prove what she can do on the court before we really start talking about this as the future of Iowa women's basketball. And this was something, too, that, again, I'll reference back to Jeff Linder, who writes for the Gazette, covers this team maybe better than anybody, knows more about Hawkeye women's hoops than anybody. But he, too, kind of said, like, boy, I really thought we'd be talking about her as the franchise going forward, and that just was not necessarily the conversations that we seem to be having. But the looks that we got in practice, if you're watching on the YouTube page, you can see her hooping out there, and she's got great handles, great distributor, she's got a great shot. Everything seems to be right there for her. So it's a matter of whether we see that from day one. Maybe she starts to pick it up later in the year like we saw with Ava Hayden last year. I mean, we were expecting a lot out of Ava, and it took her a little bit of time. You know, she was okay to good for the first few months of the year. Then come December, things started to pick up. So maybe that's what we're going to see out of Addie this year too.
Another thing, too, when you're trying to, like, when I was watching the Jan interview for the first time, or the Jan press conference from Media Day, I think she made multiple points that, you know, freshmen are still freshmen, right? And I wonder if she was trying to get a message across, like, you know, this isn't Caitlin Clark, or it isn't yet. You know, she's still a freshman. And if she has to come off the bench, she'll probably be the number one backup for the 1 and the 2, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like if she's not starting, she's not going to get 15, 20 minutes a game, because I still think she will.
Yeah, and now it's like, okay, so is she going to bridge the gap to the McKenna Velitsko era? Because they've got another 5-star recruit now coming in next year when McKenna comes to the roster. So now you've got a couple of 5-stars from California to handle out there. So we do wonder about where Addie's going to fit into the roster because, yeah, with an experienced point guard like Chit Chat Wright coming in, I say experienced, 1 year at Georgia Tech, but that does seem to be the conversation, is that she will maybe be the day one starter against, who's their season opener against? I know they've got the exhibition against Ashland, and then they start the year against Southern University, the Jags, on Monday, November 3rd.
Funny story about that. I was writing a script that the women play their first game against Southern, and our anchor is like, I think you missed a word here. It should be Southern what? No, it's just Southern.
No, we're familiar with the Jaguars. They've got one of the nation's best marching bands, so go Jags. But yeah, we did get a chance to. I mean, there was a lot of talk about some of the transfers that this team had in the offseason. There was Emily Rodriguez, but then we had Chit Chat Wright coming in that, you know, I follow women's basketball to the degree that a lot of Iowans do, where I'm following the Hawkeyes. I know what's going on with the Cyclones and my alma mater over at UNI. But outside of that, it's like, you know, it's not like I am following the outside of that all that well. So I didn't know a lot about Chit Chat Wright coming in, but boy, everybody really seems to be high on this sophomore point guard coming in from Georgia Tech. And yesterday we had a chance to hear from Chit Chat and hear from some of the, I think that Jan talked about her as well, what she brings to this roster.
She's a really fast, explosive, definitely pass first. Pass first, capital letters on all of it. And she's got a beautiful floater because she's had to. She's got a really pretty three, and it's deep. But she is so generous. So I'm trying to get the balance of her to go ahead and force a shot here or there. And yes, I never had to tell that to Caitlin Clark.
I have had to grow with just being like more vocal, and then also stepping into this new role of like coming to a new school, never been outside of Georgia, lived outside of Georgia. So it's just like everything is new. So I am embracing it. It's going to be a challenge, but I'm ready to take on that challenge.
The offensive rebound in the bucket.
Snuck in there.
What was that? Some audio coming in. Was that some?
I just pulled up YouTube and it just started playing. Usually it's not connected to the board, but I guess that changed.
What are you doing over there while I'm trying to talk our way through this women's basketball podcast? Okay, so we've got Chit Chat Wright, a player who comes in and maybe now is a starter. And from everything we hear, obviously she's a lot of fun to talk to. We like talking to her, but
sweet girl.
Yeah, very
Watching
sweet.
that interview.
Easy-natured, easy going. But that is it's not a problem, but it's something that Jan talks about kind of working on, because the nickname Chit Chat comes to her ironically, because she's always been very quiet is the reason that she kind of got called that. And so, I don't know, that was the thing that they've talked about with this point guard rotation at Iowa for the last several years, because you've had Caitlin Clark, Lucy Olson, Sam Logic, Kathleen Doyle, like people who are kind of shoot first point guards and who are a little bit more vocal leaders, but that just is not chit chat. And so Jan talks about how that is something they're really going to need to work on this year is her confidence in shooting it herself. She said, what'd she say? Pass first, all capital letters.
I was going to say, like, vocal too, but like all those players too that you mentioned that are Iowa point guards, they're all scorers too. Yeah. Like they would, Caitlin obviously with the 3 and the drive-in. Sam and Kathleen Doyle was the Big Ten Women's Player of the Year that year for the scoring, and she's more of a pass first. And Chit Chat said when you interviewed her, like, Jan has to tell her to shoot the ball more. What kind of, but, I like the old school point guard, that's like, let's dish it out. Sure. Because there are some shooters on this team. So, and to me, when I'm looking at it, and you have 2 of those bigs, it seems to me that they want to return to that Megan Gustafson era where they're like back to the basket, let's get it down low, and Monica Cesano, those kind of teams where they're just pounding it in the paint. So maybe she could deal it like that, play a little pick and pop kind of style.
They have those options this year now with Hannah Stolke, with Ava Hayden, and Layla Hayes for what she's going to be this year, which sounds like she could really be a strong contributor from day one. What I was kind of thinking about yesterday in terms of this women's basketball team is that we talk about the point guards, and not only are they vocal and not only are they scorers, but those have really been the go-to players when you need a bucket in the crunch time. If you're down 1 with under 30 seconds left, you pretty much always knew it was probably going to be Lucy Olson taking the shot, Caitlin Clark taking the shot, Kathleen Doyle, Sam Logic, etc. But I don't think that's going to be Chit Chat, right? Taking the shot down the stretch. Who is that player that you want taking a shot in the final minute of the game? At this point, not knowing what this team looks like on the court together, who do you think that is right now?
You could pick a number of players too. I think, again, if you're going to play the post style, you'd be comfortable with Ava or Hannah Stolke shooting the rock too in the mid-range, although she did say her 3-point shooting got better. I think I saw that from her.
Hannah or Ava?
Hannah,
yeah.
Yeah. But without watching her play, you'd expect a 5-star freshman to do that too. So Addie Deal, Taylor McCabe, we know she can shoot.
Yeah. If you need
so maybe Chit Chat drives, penetration, kicks it out to her.
Yeah. Yeah, there are options there. It's just like and that's maybe the thing is that there are options, whereas in the past,
you knew who was going to.
Exactly. You knew who was probably going to be taking that shot. Last year was probably going to be Lucy if you needed something. And, of course, before that it was going to be Caitlin. So, and I don't know if that even is like a benefit or a disadvantage when you have like more options for who's going to take the shot at the end of the game. If like who's that person who has that confidence and that cockiness to come out there and take that last shot. Maybe Addie does turn into that player, and maybe we are going to see that down the stretch. But still some unknowns about what this roster has so far. But something that does not seem to be an unknown is Ava Hayden. As I mentioned, that's a question I like to ask is like, okay, who have you seen improve? Who do you see really do well? And one person's name that kept coming up was post player, sophomore, out of Oregon, Ava Hayden.
I think one person I'm really excited for this year is going to be Ava. I think she, as you guys were able to probably already see throughout this past season, just the development that she's had.
Ava's in the gym a lot. She's very disciplined with what she does, and she's excited to get a bigger opportunity this year.
Having a few games under my belt where I performed really well, that made me feel more secure in who I am as a basketball player and what I can do on the floor. I think my ceiling is still really high, and there's been some things I've been working on in the offseason that can attest to that. And so hopefully we'll see those come out during this year's season.
It kind of clicked around Christmas, and then she just went for it and used that kind of disappointment of which she wasn't maybe playing as much as she'd like, and she wasn't quite as consistent. And then it kind of clicked for her. And then when it clicked, boy, she went gangbusters. And she's just a great young woman. And it was fun to see that growth. And she had a great summer. And I do think she can be a really one of the great ones.
Yeah, we saw Ava come out last year. She did not start a game last year. I didn't realize that just kind of looking at her stats. Played in 28, didn't start a single one. But that was what we saw at Ava. And that was an interesting point that she made was that, like, it took her having some games that she played well for her to build that confidence and really be able to say to herself, okay, now I really can't play at the Big Ten level.
Yeah, it really did. And I remember earlier in the season when Iowa would struggle with some bigger teams and not have that size. We were sitting here and saying, she was a high recruit too, not as high as the ones coming in, but she still was heralded recruit. And we're like, she's got the size. Why don't we, put her in? And it seems like she just wasn't at that level yet. And once she did, you could see something click. Remember in the Big Ten tournament, she had a huge performance.
Yep.
And the one thing I will say, assuming that she starts at the 5 and Hannah starts at the 4, I do remember last year, it seemed like when Hannah wasn't the 5, when she played the 4, like the offense didn't run as smoothly. And maybe that was last year's team, and maybe this year's team's a little different. Mm-hmm. But I think if Hannah truly has developed like an outside shooting game, that might still spread the floor and help the offense flow a little more.
Yeah. Ava Hayden last year, just looking through her game-by-game statistics, she didn't have her first double-digit scoring game until March 6th, second round of the Big Ten tournament against Michigan State, had 11 points. Then had 10 against Ohio State. Then the first round of the NCAAs had 15 points, 7 rebounds against Murray State. So we really didn't see the best out of her until, literally the end of the season was when we saw Ava at her best. Another player that again, maybe just kind of thinking of the traditional back-to-the-basket hoopers, would like to see the rebounding numbers go up a little bit more. Only had 72 rebounds all of last season, which he won a little bit more than that out of your 5. But nevertheless, somebody who seemed to carry that. And then this summer, when we got that peek inside of women's practice, I forget if we went to, 3 or 4 women's basketball practices where we had availability with the team. But every time I went, Ava was touching the ball a lot.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It seemed like she was just getting the ball all the time. I have a ton of highlights of her from those summer scrimmages just because she seemed to be one that was touching the ball a ton. Her and Layla Hayes really seemed to get the ball a lot. Hannah Stolke, not there, obviously. She was at the AmeriCup competing for a gold medal for, I think, the first 2 or 3 of those practices. So, take that into consideration that we weren't seeing her as an option out there. But those 2 especially, and that's where I saw Emily Rodriguez even get the ball a lot. And so Ava and Layla, it seems like this is a team that's going to be going back to its roots, back to the Megan Gustafson era as a team that really relies on its post play. We really have not had that since Monica Sonano graduated.
Yeah, and when you're talking about roster construction and kind of the size of the team, do you think they ever go like Layla and Ava 4 and 5, like just twin towers kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Or does that make it like not too condensed in the middle? Probably, unless Ava can shoot from outside. I did see a highlight of her hitting a 3 or close to a 3 in one of your practice videos. So
yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm not great at judging speed of players out there. I don't know how fast Layla and Ava are. Maybe a little bit of they're not running the 40.
Concern in transition there.
Yeah. And yeah, so but the size is there, and that's what they've needed the last couple of years and haven't had it. Outside of Hannah Stolke, she obviously was great, but there's been so much asked of Hannah the last couple of years to do so much in the post that this year maybe that alleviates that some of that what we've needed out of her. And frees her up to play that 4 spot and maybe shoot some threes. Ava did talk about developing a 3-pointer, and that's something that it seems like, I don't know, just talking to these players, it's like everybody on the team obviously thinks that they're going to be a WNBA player one day, and they all know if I need to play in the WNBA, I'm going to have to develop a 3-point shot. And so for somebody like Ava, I'm like, okay, is that something that like already as a sophomore you're really having to work on that? And she's like, a bit this year, but still that seems like something maybe more in the future that, her last 2 years she'd be working on that. I asked Layla the same question, and she's like, I shot 1 3-pointer in high school and made it. So she was 100% in her high school career up in Alaska.
Don't screw up that percentage there.
Yeah. So she was like that too. She kind of said that's something maybe more for the future, that this year kind of get used to just regularly playing that 5 spot. And then the 3-pointers might come later on. But yeah, 6'4", Ava Hayden is listed at. 6'5" is Layla Hayes. That's great size. I'd have to go back in the roster to find the last time Iowa had 2 players on the roster that were 6'4" or taller.
Yeah, and it's one of the things when you look at especially those Final Four teams, I know Monica Sonano was on one of them. Mm-hmm. Like, man, they could not, and even though they beat South Carolina in that first game, but some of those bigger teams, they really just had a huge mismatch against.
Yeah, when you got Camila Cardoso, who's 6'7", I think, like, what are you going to do? Like, that's just not an option.
Yeah, it's just tough to play when you have that. So when you have, like, a couple players where you can, if needed in those games, throw some big bodies at them, like, it's such a better option than just trying to outscore teams by, like, 95 to 92,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Last year they did have both Addie O'Grady and Ava Hayden were listed at 6'4" last year. And so and then the year before that, Addie O'Grady was listed as 6'3". Did she actually grow an inch from her junior year? I don't know. Her and Sharon Goodman were the tallest players on the roster at 6'3". Like, yeah, that should not be overlooked. This team's ability to post up down low, and I mean, I do hope that rebounding is going to be a big part of it, because that too has been maybe something that this team has been missing the last couple of years. We talked about the starting lineup, but just kind of I wanted to just go up and down the roster, and we discussed who those 8 in the rotation would be, and now we want to talk maybe about some of the names that we haven't mentioned so far, guys or gals who are or are not going to play. Starting just numerically, Taylor Strimlow, even though we're not going to talk about her very much as a scorer, she is an important player on this team, and somebody who, boy, I don't know the last time I've heard of a player who got elevated to captain as a sophomore, but that's what she is this year. She's one of the two.
I didn't know that. She's a captain?
She's one of the 2 team captains. Her and, I'm going to forget. It might have been Hannah Stolke was the other one that's captain. Forget right now. But nevertheless, Taylor Strimlow is the other one.
When we were talking about point guards, she's going to play point too. Yeah. Like, we were talking to her. I wasn't, but you were. And she was mentioned in that rotation of Chit Chat, Addie, and Taylor. All of them will play point guard. So kind of forgot her on the back end, but I wanted to mention her now.
Yeah. Strimlow is and I think that she is very similar to what Kate Martin was, somebody who I think is a capable scorer, can score, but is not ever going to be relied on as the scorer. And so she's somebody who for her career is probably going to maybe average, maybe around that 8 to 10 point mark range. But somebody who is just glue and keeps his team going. And so what we say about Strimlow is she, as much as her on-court stuff is important, what she is off the court to this team, I think, is going to be even more important for the next 3 years. Taylor McCabe, we mentioned. We kind of know what we're getting out of her.
Can she evolve her game, though? That's the question.
Exactly. And it's
there's a lot of hype, or there's a lot of talk about her, in the past few weeks about, getting better in the offseason, that I've read at least.
If she is more than just a three-point shooter, she's going to have to prove that this year. We haven't really seen that yet, and so I'd love to see that. Taylor's one of my favorite players on the team to talk to. Always just very chill, fun to chat with. So I'd like to see that out of her, but still hasn't done it yet. So I would. But you have read that people are saying that she might have developed her game a little bit more?
Yeah, that's what I've been hearing on some of the other podcasts that are out there. So okay. I know she's a senior. It's her last year. She's also a leader on this team, so I think you kind of want to put it all out there.
Mm-hmm. We got Kylie Feuerbach in there. We're assuming she's a starter. She's, I think, kind of filling that role of a Sydney Falter this year. Even though Sydney Falter is still with the team as a coach, I think that the big reason they wanted Kylie to stick around and why she chose to stick around is to continue to help. This is such a young roster. Jan Jensen said this is her youngest team since 2012, I think. There are 14 players on the roster. I think 9 are freshmen or sophomores. Super young unit, and so you need that Kylie Feuerbach type who knows the system inside and out to just help develop those players along. She's got such a unique look at this team because Kylie Feuerbach was, even though she started with Caitlin Clark, she was really around this team in the pre-Caitlin Clark effect era. And then she was part of the Caitlin Clark effect, and now she's seeing the team after the Caitlin Clark effect. She's seen all 3 phases of Iowa women's basketball.
In one of the Final Four, she was out for the season with an injury, so she had to watch from the sideline, and then she got to experience it herself the next year. It's kind of just a whirlwind of what she's done on this team.
Yeah, she's a cool leader too. We always love talking to Kylie. She's got great perspective and somebody who is a lockdown defender. I mean, that's, I think, maybe her biggest on-court contribution. She's not going to score a ton, I don't think, but just one of the best defensive players this team's going to have this year. Ava Hayden, Addie Deal, we've talked about. Journey Houston, one of the incoming freshmen. There's a lot of promise for her. I don't see her as a major contributor this season. Seems like this is a person who is going to come off the bench sparingly for important minutes, but more likely is going to be playing late in games when it's either a big win or a big loss. Somebody who probably doesn't score a total of 50 points this year, but is some investment for the future. Chit Chat talked about Layla Hayes. We've talked about her already, but that too, I can't overemphasize how much I think Layla is going to come out. And maybe it's a similar Ava Hayden scenario where we don't see her a ton the first couple months of the year, but maybe once we get to January, that's when Layla Hayes starts to enter the lineup a lot more and start seeing.
Right when you need it in Big Ten play.
Yeah, truly. And she, with, again, that 6'5" size is important to have out there. So I do think that Layla Hayes is a contributor, a heavy contributor this season. That's going to see a lot of important minutes. And I think the barrier is are you Ava Hayden your first year where you just kind of reach that plateau at the end of the season, or are you more than that? Like, can you come out there right away and be a contributor? I'm really excited to see her on day one.
One game that's early on in the season that I think they're going to need size and they're going to need rotation is Iowa State because they're playing Audie Crooks. Like, couldn't you imagine, the Bigs getting a couple fouls in the first half just because, Audie's so good? Mm-hmm. And when you're playing down low like that and the game's focused there, they might need some extra bodies for fouls and stuff. So if she can put it on early in the season, that might be a welcome sight.
Iowa has always played really well against Audie Crooks, I will say.
That's true.
That's a 2-game sample size. But nevertheless, they've always done well, even when it was Sharon Goodman out there. Like, they did well against her. And I think that size depth is what we really have to consider for this year's team. Is last year, if Hannah got in foul trouble, we were going to be in trouble. Ava Hayden was what she was for the first half of the year, so, she was still coming along. Or it was going to be Addie O'Grady out there, which was never what you wanted to, rest your laurels on. And so I just like the fact that we have a deep lineup when it comes to size right now with 3 players out there who, even if Hannah does get into foul trouble, we've got 2 more bigs out there who can really hold their own too. Kenise Johnson is coming in her junior year. Haven't seen much of her first 2 years. I don't imagine that changing much this year. Emily Rodriguez, we touched on a little bit, a transfer from UCF. I really think that she's a talented player. I don't know if she's the biggest contributor this year, but maybe next year, once Kylie Feuerbach's gone, she steps into possibly a starting role. We've talked a lot about her size, just like she's just built strong. I mean, Kylie is she's tough on defense, but she's still slight. She's just a narrow-bodied person. But Emily Rodriguez is tough out there. She's got a big body. She's very muscular. I'm excited to see what she can do, and she's a good shooter too. Next is Jada Jimfy. Again, she is what she is. Great height person, great locker room player. Probably not seeing a whole lot of significant minutes this year. If she does play significant minutes, I would be a little surprised. She just is kind of that hype person that you'd like to have on the bench. Anything that I mean, that's just.
I mean, you've been at the practices more than I have, but it seems like when Jan says the top 8 during that press conference, you kind of think that it's tightened a little bit, but who knows? It could expand. Injuries can happen, and it can shove people into some bigger roles down the season too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and same could be said for Callie Levine, somebody who probably isn't going to see the floor a ton. She scored her first career points in the NCAA tournament in the Oklahoma game, I think, that she scored in. I forget if it was the first or second round game, but she had her first points late in the year, but still somebody who might see a little bit more time than what we saw last year. But again, with the amount of talent we have, on this year's roster, we just had a cook-off in the back, so I've still got a little bit of indigestion coming up here. Callie Levine, though, I think is somebody that, again, everybody loves her, a fan favorite, and she really could be kind of like the Jada Jimfy of the future, because Jada's been, as much as her on-court contribution is not there, you really can't speak enough to what she's been in the locker room. She really is a glue type of person that keeps things fun. Jan and Lisa have liked having a fun locker room where things are light and lively. Jada's offered that, and I think that Callie offers that too once Jada's gone. Next is Hannah Stolke. Enough said. Senior year, I mean, she's Cedar Rapids' favorite native daughter. Everybody just loves this girl. Potential I don't even know if I want to say potential WNBA player, almost lock for a WNBA player.
Is that right? I haven't looked at any mock drafts or anything, but
listen, I haven't really either. I'm not going to pretend like I'm any expert on the on draft options, but
I mean, frankly, I've barely looked at any NBA too, so it's just something you don't think about at this time of the year.
Yeah,
unless you're a true sicko.
Oh boy, and we love the sickos on this podcast. I'm going to kind of scroll through a Bleacher Report mock draft here and see if Hannah Stolke pops up, because she is that type of person that WNBA teams would like, who's got size.
I think so, yeah.
She's got speed,
especially if her shoot does improve, like we've heard it has for a shot.
It seems like everybody talks about her her hops. Even from her true freshman year, people were like, "This girl can jump." So it seems like she has all of the intangibles that are there that a team would like to have for their draft pick, but I don't know. I'm not seeing her showing up in a first round for what Bleacher Report has to say about this. So, but I don't know. I do think that Hannah Stolke, at the end of the day, has what it takes to compete in the WNBA. And when you have a few rounds of draft picks, it's why wouldn't you take this player that's got so much to offer? So, closing out the lineup talk is Tegan Mullaney. Maybe the biggest question mark on this year's roster is Tegan Mullaney. As we mentioned, had her ups and downs last year, had her points early in the year where, was it the Iowa State game that she really popped off in? Or she had a couple games early on that she was really good.
Yeah, there were some games, and I don't remember the specifics. I didn't look back at the box scores, but like there were games where I'm like, wow, why isn't she playing more? And then there'd be other games like, oof, maybe less. But it just seemed like a roller coaster kind of year. So when you're looking at her being the 9th player, maybe that's where the rotation starts and stops. And I still think she gets her chance though, because she did give some solid minutes last year for this team. And when you're thinking about it though, like when you're looking at the schedule too, early on, she has a year of experience, and they face 3 top 25 teams in the non-conference, with Baylor at a neutral, number 1 UConn at neutral, and Iowa State on the road. So they're going to be tested in those games, and I think you're going to want experience, and she has 1 year of experience.
That's true. Yeah. Season opener, she had 14 points against Northern Illinois. A few games later against Drake, she scored 13 and did not reach double-figure scoring the rest of the year. Only a handful of points scored after the start of January. So seems like another player that's maybe still in development a little bit, has the ability to provide some depth, and is going to play important minutes. She is somebody who's going to be in the rotation, I think. We talk about her as that, like, possible 9 player. If there's going to be a top 8, she's maybe number 9 in terms of, like, importance and what they bring on the court, but not somebody who's probably going to see the starting lineup unless there's a couple of injuries that happen for this roster.
100%.
So that is a wrap on the women's basketball team. We've got some things to plug. We have the Eye on the Hawks podcast that comes up on the Iowa's News Now YouTube page. We're going to be probably chatting once a week about basketball come the start of the season.
Probably starting in December once football wraps up.
Yeah. Listen, we've got a lot to cover here with this football team. There's a lot happening.
I was thinking, and great place to do it right on the pod. I'm thinking we'll do an episode like mid next month, maybe after the Xavier game for the men, just to see after the first 3 games of the 3 or 4 games of the Ben McCollum era, see how that's going, see how the first few games of the women's basketball, how Eddie Deal's playing, how everything we just talked to today, like actually see stuff on the court. And then once December hits, I'm thinking once a week.
Yeah, I like that plan. I mean, in terms of you, the viewer who's watching or listening right now, it's like we do have these Hawkeye football things to take care of. We've got high school football we're covering. Doing the podcast is none of our full-time jobs. It's basically a hobby for all of us to sit in here and talk about football or basketball as it relates to the Hawkeyes. But going forward, most of the podcasts are going to be strictly basketball, like combined with the men's and women's teams together, I think. And so just for these season openers, when we had so much to talk about with both teams, we wanted to split them up a little bit. But we do have all the Eye on the Hawk stuff that you can follow us on X. The following continues to grow on YouTube and so forth. Wherever you find podcasts, you can find Eye on the Hawks, and we'll continue to plug these on Iowa's News Now at 5, 6, 9, 10. What time is the morning show at this station?
It starts at 5.
And goes to what time?
The morning show?
Yeah.
It ends at 8.
Okay. 3-hour show?
Well, the first 2 hours on CBS, the last hour's on Fox, but technically, yeah, they're on for 3 hours.
I'm never waking up for that now.
I used to be a producer for the show, so as long as I know.
They asked me recently, they were having some Hawkeye assistant coaches come in the studio, and I got asked, do you want to come in and help with the interviews? I'm like, do I want to wake up at 5:30 and come in, talk to an assistant coach? I don't think so.
That would have been in the last hour, though. 7:30.
Oh, okay, 7:30. Bring Ben McCollum into the show and we'll talk. But unless Jan Jensen's getting in there, yeah, I don't think so. I've got sleep to catch up on. But we do thank you for joining us on Eye on the Hawks, and we're going to talk to you again soon with a football podcast, I'm sure. But in terms of Sunday, yeah.
Penn State reaction.
Okay, yeah, we got to react to Penn State with Mike and Mitch. I'll be out of town covering Cooper DeJean playing for the Eagles up at the Vikings game in Minneapolis. But Mike and Mitch are going to be breaking down whatever happens at Penn State this weekend, and we're going to have 2 podcasts a week moving forward the rest of the year. And then once we get into basketball season, we'll get going again with discussions about Addie Deal and Ben McCollum and everybody else with the basketball unit. So thanks again for joining us on Eye on the Hawks. For Owen, for Owen, I'm Owen. That's Mike. We've got Erica behind the scenes running the director's chair. So we're going to see you again next time on Eye on the Hawks.
At DePaco Credit Union, we value your health and happiness as much as your financial well-being. We encourage the volunteer spirit by providing DePaco employees with the tools and resources to help grow our communities and support the causes that matter to us. We believe that giving back not only strengthens the places we call home, but also enhances our overall well-being. Well-being is the key to a life worth loving. So when you think about yours, remember that DePaco can help you be well.